right, welcome to another edition of the show, Frontier Opening Bell. I'm Templar Shaju. We've got Ali Kansachu, founder of Rich Frontiers Management in Nairobi, Kenya, joining us this morning. Bosin Amofaye, executive editor at Frontier Africa Reports. Onyeka Ijoma from Vetiva Capital Management. Thank you, gentlemen, for gracing the show this morning. Let's look at the markets. Nigeria was down again yesterday by some 8 basis points. You have the BRVM Stock Exchange rising by 67 basis points on Tuesday. The Egyptian Stock Exchange slumped by 2.13%. Kenya Nairobi Stock Exchange jumped by 1.47%, while the Johannesburg Stock Exchange was marginally positive by 0.03%. Eastern African headlines where quite a number of activities have been happening. Kenya Capital Market Authority admits 2 fintech companies to regulatory sandbox. Kenya's Tea Development Association, malls, NSE listing, tea farmers to own direct stake. Prime Bank Q1 2021 profit before tax positive by more than 8%, while retailers get some 1.1 billion Kenyan shilling compensation for holding pump price. Lexo Energy is to install EV charging stations in Kenya, and you have Middle East Bank Kenya posting some 29 million Kenyan shillings in profit after tax for the first quarter of the year. Serve us all those headlines quickly. Ali, help us to understand how to trade them this morning.
So let me first start with a pretty big surge yesterday in the Nairobi All Share. This was driven by a repricing higher of Safaricom, which is 63% of the market capitalization of the Nairobi Securities Exchange, and therefore has an outsized impact up or down. The market has obviously gotten extremely optimistic since the announcement of the award of the license for Ethiopia. However, I think it's getting a bit ahead of itself for a number of reasons. There are some complexities around the funding, which was going to be provided by the DFC, the American arm, who are now asking for advice from the Biden administration since the weekend announcement of some sanctions on Ethiopia. And, you know, it's a long-term project. It's not a short-term boost. You know, there are challenges over currency repatriation, and I think it'll take a lot of investment. So keep an eye on that. I think it's a bit of a sugar high, and we'll see it trade back over the next few sessions. Results-wise, we have had 2 important results come out. TPS Serena, which is our premier hospitality brand. The Serena Hotel in Nairobi is well known. Their hotels in the game parks. They've even got a management contract as far as the DR Congo in Goma. Reported a full year loss, quite a substantial one. This was to be expected. They were shuttered for many months of last year. They're saying that even on reopening, they've had an oversupply of rooms, very short lead times for bookings, but really they were at the bleeding edge of the pandemic year, as it were. So pretty tough for them. And Equity Group released their first quarter results, grew 64% to 8.7 billion shillings on a revenue expansion of 29%. Non-performing loans, they reported stood at 11.3% against an industry average of 14.6%. Basically, they're going great guns. They've got a franchise which includes what I consider the jewel in the crown, which is their operation in the Congo, where you know, they sit on deposits where the depositors have got to pay them 2% on dollars. So you know, you can just do the maths there. So look, very good results, strong rebound numbers, a share to certainly watch, I think, this year at the NSE, particularly if the rebound gains momentum. Just to give you an idea, they accommodated 171 billion shillings, which is $1.71 billion because of COVID. and they're saying $59.590 billion is resumed repayment. 66 billion is still awaiting resumption, and that will happen in 6 months' time, to give you a flavor of how tough it has been for some businesses. Going back to your headlines, the CMA has had this sandbox in operation for a few years. I think they're obviously trying to attract some attention to it. It's yet to really take off, in my opinion. Hopefully it will. Kenya Tea Development Authority have given out shares to tea farmers and others and other stakeholders, and are talking about listing at the stock exchange. I think that would be a positive development and a meaningful listing, where we've had a lot of minnows that have come to the market which really haven't excited anyone here or there. Something like the Kenya Tea Development Authority certainly would, because the tea industry is worth more than $1 billion a year. Prime Bank, a small bank, a lot of private equity investors have gotten into it. Regional franchise as far as Malawi, up 11% profit after tax, not bad. And oil retailers, the Kenya government started to get concerned about the rise in fuel prices here in Kenya. More than 50% of the price is taxed, by the way. And last month, basically told the oil marketeers that they should not pass through the price increase, and 1.1 billion, that's basically $10 million of a subsidy. Obviously, they can't keep this up, but it'll be interesting to see what happens this month. But it shows you, it's good for you guys in Nigeria, but higher oil price starts to hit us quite hard, and the government has had to react in this way.
Interesting. Thank you very much, Ali. Bosun, any of these East African headlines you like to have a go with?
I think Ali pretty sums it up. It's just that compensation for oil retailers from a petroleum compensation fund, whatever fund, I'm not sure it comes to any retailer in Nigeria. It's a different rules for different folks. The NNPC, which is the State Oil Corporation, is the one that is in charge of petrol imports 100% or 99.9%, by the way. So it's government money in government pockets in government house in Nigeria. That's the way it is.
Thank you, Bosun. Moving on now to the West African and Nigerian markets headlines, where the NNPC in Nigeria renews the OML 118 for 20 years in $10 billion deep water deal. The Central Bank of Nigeria Monetary Policy Committee also remains dovish, retains monetary policy rates at 11.5%. First quarter manufacturing GDP growth is on the 1 trillion naira targeted funding, says Godwin Emefiele, the central bank governor in Nigeria. NIPCO, which is a company listed on the NASDOTC, now declares 3 naira or 300 kobo in dividend. The annual general meeting is set to hold on the 2nd of June. Ghana now plans $1 billion sustainable bond in July. Togo raises 22 billion CFA franc in stimulus bonds via the UEMOA markets. Cote d'Ivoire rice imports hit some 317 billion CFA franc in the fiscal year 2020. Let's start with you for the stories coming out of Nigeria. Onyeka Ijoma, yesterday, the CBN MPC happened. Of course, we had seen inflation data coming the day before. We had also seen the GDP figure coming out the day before. How would you want to square up all of this for us?
Thank you very much, Temple. Yesterday, we saw the MPC hold rates, pretty much hold all the levers, monetary levers constant. This was in line with expectation. Like you said, we had seen the GDP numbers come in positive, a growth of 0.5, about 0.5% year on year. And then we saw inflation numbers even come in lower than we had expected. So the base expectation was that, the CBN would hold off on, pushing for forth any, further policies to see, how far their current policies would, go to, keep, pushing their targets. However, I think the more interesting thing with the even more interesting than the MPC announcement was the exchange rate move by the CBN yesterday. What we saw was that the CBN listed the NAFEX rate as listed the NAFEX rate on its website. We know that last week the CBN removed the 379 naira to $1 exchange rate from its website, and now it has listed the NAFEX rate as the official rate. I think this is very clear signaling from the CBN. It doesn't do much in terms of change much of the operations, given that pretty much every activity was carried out at an NAFEX rate anyways. But what it does is it gives clear signaling to investors that the CBN is gradually moving towards a more floating exchange rate, which is very important, especially for investors who have had backlog of FX orders that have not been filled yet. They will be looking to exit at this current rate, and they will believe that it will be more possible, given that the NAFEX window is a bit more liquid than the funding than the wholesale FX moves from the CBN. I think that's the key thing. Another interesting thing that the central bank governor mentioned was the CBN digital currency. And yesterday, they talked about Nigeria looking into establishing a digital currency, much like we've seen with countries like China and some of the other larger countries. We do know that Nigeria is one of the largest crypto players in the world, accounting for a significant portion of transactions, as people as people tend to use cryptocurrencies for transactions in order to skirt restrictive foreign exchange regulations. However, the CBN is looking to establish its own digital currency. How effective it would be would generally depend on whether the same restrictions to the fiat currency, to the fiat naira, would apply to the digital currency, because the current cryptocurrencies feel a need that the fiat currency do not. And so, it will just be interesting to watch that space. In general, then also looking into the NNPC story, while this does seem like a routine OML agreement, between the NNPC and some other deep water players like SNEPCO, Total, ESO, and AGIP. I think the more interesting thing is the revised production sharing contract, which is basically the headline here. We've seen production sharing contracts sort of stall over the past few years in Nigeria, generally because there's been a disagreement between the major players and the NNPC on the terms of this contract, and this current agreement set a template for the signing of more production sharing contracts in Nigeria, especially with regards to key projects such as Shell's Bonga deepwater project, which had been sort of waiting for a new production sharing contract template. So we definitely want to see how that plays out. And then finally, on the Ghanaian sustainable bonds thing, I think it's a very innovative bond, basically looking to refinance some of their older bonds with more sustainable bonds. And it also points to the growing trend in the market of a significant shift towards ESG considerations when making investment decisions, and they're getting ahead of the curve here. They're also setting a template which I expect other African countries to follow.
Thank you very much. Thanks a great deal there, Onyeka. Bosun, any quick contributions before we touch on other parts of the show?
Well, I think for me, look, I know the central bank governor yesterday mentioned the the cryptocurrency for Nigeria. It's not going to come anytime soon. Don't be on the lookout for it tomorrow.
By the way, Bosun, sorry for cutting in there. Would you like to help us distinguish or basically give explanations around digital currency and cryptocurrency? Are they the same thing or they're different, for the sake of all those that will be watching?
I think digital currency, cryptocurrency sums up the entire family of whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever name you call it. Digital currency is what every central bank would want to issue. So that's called digital currency. So you have the fiat currency, they have digital currency. In other words, you have the one you can hold, which is a physical piece of paper or coins in some jurisdictions. Then you now have a digital part of it. It's like a digital payment system. You can go to the bank and take your cash off the table and put it in a bag or your pocket, suit pocket, and walk away. Or you can do a digital transfer or whatever. So it's just I think they're as simple as that. But Nigerian Central Bank is not going to roll out a digital currency anytime soon. They're going to be very, very skeptical about it. They're going to be studying the grounds, not taking into account some of the soundbite from China in the last few days, and so I think. But this thing is a statement of intent, which I think will calm the nerves of a lot of folks in the market, as it were. In terms of the MPC, I think we'll leave all of that out. The central bank explained yesterday the GDP numbers for the manufacturing sector and what have you. The good news is another 100 billion naira is coming and is ready for intervention into the manufacturing and those specific sectors, which we hope will help move the economy forward. Quite a whole lot there. The Ghana story is the biggest story. $1 billion sustainability bond. This beats Nigeria's green bond, which was floated a few years ago. $1 billion is going to be a massive one coming in the month of July. Look, Ghana is just bit the bullet and show that, look, we got what it takes. And it's going to be part of it to be the first Africa's social bond, which I'm sure the EFDB will be very, very interested in. So that's one big news from Ghana yesterday. They've been working with the International Finance Corporation on this for a couple of months. The news first broke out sometime in February that they're working on something like this with the World Bank Private Sector Lending Arm, and now they're ready to go. Good news. Good news also yesterday with the release of the SEC Master Plan for Ghana, which they rolled out. The details are still out there. We're trying to study that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bosun. Moving to the Southern African market headlines now, where Eskom cuts debts to 401 billion rands in the month of March. Africa Oil Week conference is now leaving South Africa for Dubai in 2021, and that's on the basis of the pandemic. The South African maize farmers see 7% rise in 2020-2021 output. Spar Group's first half-year numbers are out. Switzerland, Ireland operations beats home South Africa. Of course, we know that's not far-fetched. It's due to the pandemic. Group turnover is more than 7%, and of course interim dividends is heavy at 4% plus. And Botswana Stock Exchange, you have Olympia Capital Corporation reporting a profit of some 2.59 million for the full year 2020 earnings. Reports recently published. Ali, let's come to you with the South African headlines.
So let me start with the story that we've seen a significant uptick in COVID infections in South Africa. The test positivity rate has popped over 10%. You look at Johannesburg, there are about 500 daily infections a day. The record high in wave 1 and wave 2 was 1,000. So, that is the one caveat that I think people should take on board. And given that, we really as a continent are far behind the vaccination curve, it means that we are still in the same place we were when wave 1 and wave 2 hit. So keep an eye on that. If I can also jump to one other story I saw, which was the report that Emmanuel Macron had met or was meeting with Cyril Ramaphosa ahead of a meeting with the Mozambique President Nyusi. And this was around possibly the South African army deploying into Cabo Delgado to try and dampen down the insurgency, which has affected the French company Total's investment, around which they called a force majeure for it's estimated a year. So that is the biggest single project in sub-Saharan Africa today. It was put on ice, but I think this is an interesting development that Macron, Ramaphosa, and Nyusi are working in coordination. I think it's probably untenable to see the French intervene there, and therefore it'd be far better to have one of our fellow African brothers go in there. Eskom cutting debt obviously has been a big challenge for them. That's a positive trend to see. Africa Oil Week, unfortunate for South Africa, but Dubai has obviously stolen that away from them. South African maize farmers see a 7% rise in output, the agri-economy has outperformed all other components of the South African economy last year. They've done well, they had good weather. So I think that's a very net positive. I saw food prices beginning to tick up, but South Africa has a sophisticated farm economy, and if that's performing well, it's significantly helpful.
Thank you very much, Ali, for those comments there. Onyeka, you've got the Eskom story right before you, and of course, how positive are you as well about the 7% output that the maize farmers are expecting to happen this year?
So, just piggybacking on the Eskom story from what Ali said, this is a very positive development, from Eskom. They've been battling with severe debt for a while. We know that they underwent a restructuring program earlier this year to try to, deal with some of their problems. If I remember correctly, they split their operations into three distinct stages, sort of like the Nigerian, sort of adopting the Nigerian model in that instance. And we know that it does seem to be working for them, at least according to statements from the minister. They seem more upbeat on Eskom's operations, and the cherry on top of the cake is that they've been able to cut down their debt, and they seem to have a plan to push that even further. Eskom is a big part. Power utility is a big part of any economy, of economic development, and it will be very important for South Africa to get that right. And then looking at the maize story, I think the key thing was that there was there was better, more favorable weather in 2020, and we saw maize output growth improve in the year. But I think the even more positive thing is that the outlook for weather conditions in 2021 is a lot stronger, and so we're expecting an improvement, especially when you consider the movement of the wave movement from the Pacific, from the Asia Pacific regions, basically the weather climate movement from the Asia Pacific region, as basically we are getting into the heart of La Nina weather cycle.
Thank you very much. Thanks a great deal, Onyeka, for that. As we coast home now, let's finish off with the Northern African headlines, where Qatar, Egypt seek joint Arab action over Nile Dam disputes with Ethiopia. World Bank halves loan to Tunisia for forest management on low rate of projects results. Integrated Diagnostic Holdings secures some $45 million IFC loan. Minifarm is to pay some 2.7 or £2.70 per share in cash dividend. Of course, that goes to shareholders. And Morocco's Addoha Group plans some 500 million dirhams bond loan. Let me hear your thoughts quickly, Bosin, before I hear that of Ali.
Well, I know Ali would want to jump into the Nile Dam story.
Sure.
Because it looks like it's getting a whole lot bigger than the $4 billion. $4 billion is the size of the fund for the Renaissance Dam. I think this controversy and problem is getting bigger than $4 billion US. But it looks like the bigger the money, the size of the project, the bigger the controversy around it. So I think that's the whole story. But also I'll just stick with the pharmaceuticals and the pharma story and all of that. And I love, and I keep saying this every day, Temple, that the Central Bank of Nigerian government yesterday spoke about the interventions in the pharmaceutical sector. Yeah. You saw that sector coming back now upstream in Nigeria from a very low level. That is one thing that economies around Africa should be doing. And when you see the kind of deals, the kind of takeover, mergers, management buyouts, whatever it is within the North African space, especially in Egypt, that is one good news. Just something up on my side. Tomorrow, Njoroge, who is the Central Bank Governor of Kenya, will be speaking at 11 o'clock in the morning. About 10 o'clock in the morning. I saw that notice just a few minutes ago while the show was on. So Ali will be on top of that, listening to and taking all the story for around the banks now, the earnings, and what more guidance we'll get from the Central Bank Governor tomorrow in Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bosin. Ali, your thoughts? I know you like to join to save the Nile.
So look, I mean, the Nile Dam has been a flashpoint for the likes of Egypt and Sudan, and one has to admire Al-Sisi's coalition building. They've been having military maneuvers between Sudan and Egypt, flexing. Now he's coordinating with the GCC. I think he was in Qatar, in Doha yesterday, or he's due there today. So the Egyptians are clearly putting their muscle on the table vis-a-vis Ethiopia. Ethiopia is determined to proceed with the dam. They're saying it's not going to affect Sudan and Egypt at the moment, but given the fragile nature of the geopolitics of the region, anything could trigger something. So we've got to watch this scenario unfolding very, very carefully. And I think it's important at some point for Egypt and Ethiopia to reconcile. But for now, that reconciliation seems some ways off. World Bank halving the loan to Tunisia for forest management is not a good sign. Tunisia has got a request to the IMF for a very large loan. And it's unfortunate that they haven't been able to deploy the forest management loan from the World Bank. It sends the wrong signal at a time when you're looking for a lot of money.
Thank you very much. Thanks a great deal, Ali Kansachu, the CEO of Rich Frontiers Management in Kenya. Thanks a great deal for your editorials and your analysis on the show this morning, because you went deeper into editorials as well. Thanks a great deal. Onyeka Ijema, thank you so much for joining us all the way from Vertebra Capital Management. Thanks for your analysis. Bosona Mafaye, appreciate your judgment and your editorial considerations on the show this morning. This has been the show, Frontier Opening Bell. Go trade them beautifully today. I'm Temple Ashaju. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.